medication. Yeah. Because I told him, check. So,
Good evening. This evening for the pledge, we have students Jake Bennett and Charlie Troutman from second grade. Jake and Charlie, could you come up? Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
please remain standing for a brief moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, Jake and Charlie. Thank you so much. You are more than welcome to stay for the entirety of the meeting. But we also will not be offended if you decide to depart. Have a great evening.
All right, call the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. Item 1.3, meeting announcements. The executive session was held on March 24th at 6:30 for personnel and legal discussions. A board meeting was held on March 24th at 7 p.m. The executive session was held on April 14th at 6:30 p.m. for personnel and legal discussions. A workshop meeting was held on April 14th at 7 p.m. An executive session was held on April 28th at 6 p.m. for personnel and legal discussions. And a board meeting is being held now, April 28th, 7 p.m. Jean, roll call vote.
Mr. Joy Beers, present. Mr. Richard Belts. Ms. Barbara Bose. Here. Mr. Dwayne Elder.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Glouch.
Present.
Mr. Sean Gleaves. Present. Ms. Heather Neff. Present. Mrs. Carrie Sittler. Absent. And Ms. April Walker. Here. Thank you.
Great, moving on to item 1.5, presentations and recognition, the nutrition group.
Hi. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everyone again. Thank you for allowing me to present this evening.
Thank you for the snack.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I didn't have a dinner, so I can eat.
They were actually part of, Nicole did a Wellness Wednesday Nutrition Every Day presentation with the students that the children got to make. So this is our mid-year update. Just kind of want to take you through a little bit of the highlights of what we've done this year in the cafeteria. So as you can see, Nicole kicks off the year. We start with our professional development training. Our professional development training is required by PDE. And we do that every August, and then we have our opening meeting. This spring, we'll also be doing a Serve Safe for the food handler, as well as every June, we host a Serve Safe for the managers meeting as well, and that'll be also in June. Okay, and then just some highlights, kicking the school year back off. We had some open houses where Nicole was able to promote the CEP program, the breakfast program, and then we also do Nutrition for Life, which introduces the students to the cafeteria, usually kindergarten and first grade. It's a 3-day event. Throughout the year, we also have some fun themed highlights, as you can see, that Nicole likes to do with her staff. We had National School Breakfast and Lunch Week. There's always holiday events. We have the parents' luncheons. Each grade is allowed to bring parents to lunch. That's another great way to promote the program within the district. And then, of course, we have our signature TNG promotions like Molly the Cat. This year, and most recently, we did a snack. Nicole and our corporate dietitian, Lynn Cesarini, did a snack attack where the students got to come to the table and create a healthy snack. And they were taught the benefits of choosing wisely when you're going to have a snack. Earlier in the year, they did a Vary Your Veggie promotion where the students created a salad shaker, and they were able to sample that and then create their own delicious vegetables. Nicole and Lynn, our corporate dietitian, also contributed to a successful administrative review. It's a 5-year cycle that the PDE and USDA do. It's with the cafeteria program as well as other parts of the administrative process for the cafeteria. And there were no corrective actions or technical assistance from the cafeteria. So they did an excellent job of doing that as well. We also have customer engagement as part of our cornerstone of what the nutrition group does. YAC meetings, Youth Advisory Council meetings, are very important to us, and I know that we like to get the student feedback and utilize that in menu planning. Nicole's done several of those this year as well. And then feature faves or limited time options programs are back again this year, and they'll be back again next year. Our corporate chefs, our dietitians, and our corporate chefs and our dietitians put these recipes together to make sure they're program compliant, but they're new fun spin on everyday items. Some are entree items, some are a la carte items, but they're here today, gone tomorrow, and if the kids really like them, then we bring them back. Then each month we have a food service report that Nicole provides to everyone, and we kind of wrap up what we're doing in the cafeteria, kind of at a glance of what happened, the month previously. When we look at your participation, as we go into budget development, these are your March averages participation, and we look at what was your 23-24 year as well as your current year, and then what we're going to budget for next year. And as you can see, your breakfast and lunch are well ahead of your budget. Your a la carte is slightly below budget, but that's really not hurting your bottom line at all. So it's only about $174 off a day. So, and it's not really impacting you negatively at all. As you can see, 32% of your students participate in your breakfast program, and 65% participate in your lunch program. When we look at your year-to-date revenue, you can see that your reimbursements are over your budget, as well as your cash sales are over budget as well. So we take this and we look at, we're going to compare your revenue. So we take your actual revenue from 23-24, what was projected for 24-25, and then what we're going to put in your budget for 25-26. So as you can see, your cash is projected and your budget for next year is about the same, but your reimbursements are up by about $14,000. So it's a better bottom line for 25-26 for next year. And then as we move into 25-26, we want to make sure that we are fulfilling our promises to you. So we want to make sure that we're hitting our a la carte breakfast and lunch marks. There's several challenges that we'll be facing next year, as well as this year. With a la carte, it's the higher cost of goods, which limits student spending. So our chefs and our dietitians, they try to find new a la carte items that are program compliant and smart snack reliant. Our breakfast program, we can always look to increase that. We want to make sure that as many students as possible are taking advantage of the Universal 360 breakfast program. And then for lunch, next year the guidelines for USDA for sodium, sugar, and whole grains are changing again. Sodium and sugar are going to be reduced, whole grain is going to be increased. So it's always a challenge to find products and recipes that the students like within these guidelines.
Without sugar and more whole grain.
Without sugar, with less salt, and all whole grain. But we do student taste testing, and they just concluded it with a bunch of new products that our chefs and our purchasing department have put together and our dietitian has analyzed. So then when we create your budget, we look at all the possible sources of revenue, and they're basically your reimbursable meals. We want to make sure that we're capturing as many of those as possible. We want to see as many students eating as possible. We want to make sure your a la carte sales are positive in the district. Obviously, your special function sales, that we continue our partnerships with Shine, and that your CACFP after school program continues to maintain. With your expenses, operating costs are generally your highest cost, food, paper, and cleaning costs. Food this year was budgeted at a 5% increase. Paper and cleaning were budgeted at an 8%, although with the recent tariffs, we're starting to see more of a climb to 10%, but we're holding steady at the 8% that we budgeted. And we'll just make sure to be diligent with managing our operating expenses wisely. Then everything else was raised by the CPI, which was 2.9 this year. So that's really the cafeteria in a nutshell for 24 or 25, 26, as well as going into 24, 26. Does anyone have any questions about the cafeteria program this year or next year?
I was just wondering, you have the average daily participation broken down by breakfast and lunch. Do you happen to have a breakdown by building?
I can get that for you, yeah,
That would be awesome, thank you.
absolutely.
They're taking the chemical dyes out of the food. How is that going to impact what you do?
Well, they are.
And the kids eating it.
And the kids eating it. Well, yes, they are removing the red dyes and things like that. I'm sure our chefs and our dietitians will come up with a creative way to make sure that it's still a eye appealing, as we know, we eat with our eyes. So, you know, I know that there's the caramel and the ketchup is being removed, things like that. So they'll find other ways to make it eye appealing and tasteful.
Well, I know it's across the board too. It's not like you can buy anything with that stuff and after, you know, the transition. But you know how kids are.
We do know how kids are. So, and we take, and that's why we take their feedback. And I know that a lot of the products that we partner with manufacturers that create things or produce things specifically for the K-12 industry. So we take the products that they're giving us and we take them out across the state of Pennsylvania, and they choose X amount of schools. And they take these products and the children sample them. And then they bring back the feedback and they whittle them down a little bit more and more to see what's gonna be on our order guide for next year. And then the chefs and the dietitians are tasked with making it fun and tasteful.
It would be interesting, and I hope somebody out there does a study on how behavior improves, considering what they attribute.
To red dye.
I didn't think about it, but my son wasn't allowed to buy lunch at school. We thought it was the sugar and stuff, because he would get like over the top, but it may have been all the chemical dyes contributing.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how that does affect children moving forward. I mean,
I'm only going by the studies I've seen so far that it says affects them. So, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but I would find that interesting.
I would find it interesting too. If you get that data, will you share it with me?
Sure,
Thank you.
if I find it,
Okay, if I find it, I'll share it with you.
I'll call Kennedy and ask her for it.
Any other questions for Sue? Thank you, Sue.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for letting me present.
All right. Item 1.6 is public comment on the approval of the agenda. There's no such public comment. Item 1.7, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented or an alternative?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to traditional public comment, we have one. Roy James.
Thank you for letting me speak. A couple of meetings ago, I brought up the idea of monitoring in classrooms. I think it's a given that it would motivate the students, motivate teachers. It would be a security issue that would help. It would help monitor the classroom so that any security issues would always be on tape, it would be easily accessible, maybe be a deterrent to anyone acting up. You know, if it's posted, you are being recorded, right, in the classroom. We already do monitor it in hallways. So I checked out some legal experts about the issue, because I was told at a meeting that we would have to get consent from both parties in order to make it legal. However, the FERPA laws do not address classroom monitoring at all. There's no specific guideline in the FERPA laws. And that's federal. The state laws also don't make any specific recommendations about whether or not it can be. Pennsylvania is a two-party state. In other words, both participants in a conversation have to be given consent. You have to give consent before they can be taped. But that's a conversation. The general consensus of the experts is that when there's no expectation of privacy, the situation is different. You do not need to require, you don't need to obtain consent from both parties. And a public classroom, of course, is not a private conversation. One of the experts was interesting to bring up was from the U.S. Department of Education. Michael B. Hawes wrote a letter. He's the Director of Student Privacy Policy and Office of Chief Privacy Officer at the U.S. Department of Education. And he wrote that after being questioned, can schools videotape for the purposes of staff development? Occasionally, staff may be videotaped for the purposes of their professional development. While these videos are focused on the staff member, they may also include limited student footage, such as student writing on the blackboard or asking a question. This is acceptable and does not require written parental consent. But the videotaping should be, according to his opinion, for a defined period, and the building administrator should give consent. That's from the U.S. Department of Education.
So what are you imagining? Are you imagining like a security camera in the classroom and the video is stored somewhere and it's only accessed by the superintendent if there's like an event that happens, or?
Well, if it's stored in any which way, it could eventually, in the future, be given out to someone else, we don't know who. So once it's recorded, then it is subject to the restriction law. We perhaps could just not record it, and then it wouldn't be a problem.
So you're imagining a live camera feed?
Yeah, just have a live camera
And
feed that,
who can
just so
watch
maybe
it?
the
Who can
principals
watch
could
it?
look in on. Yeah,
The
yeah,
principals?
yeah, or the parents, if we got consent from them, I think you might need it for that. But, well, maybe not even that, but I think it would allow the principals to really monitor, in a surprise context, so that they can find out what's actually happening in the classrooms, which we don't really know. I mean, we don't go in the classrooms. We're here, we talk about billions of dollars of spending and programs and government grants, and we don't even know what's going on in our own classrooms. I mean, yeah, that's scary. That's so scary, I mean, the cart before the horse, So, I don't know, I think it's something to really look into, because in terms of the legality, I don't think it should be the problem. There have been no laws, I looked exhaustively on the internet, there have been no lawsuits against a school district for televising classrooms.
Well, do
None.
many of them actually do it?
What?
Are there schools that actually do that?
I've been told, now, I called a couple of schools and, they don't want to give out any information, who are you? But I spoke to a teacher that worked at a school, a charter school in Chester, and she said that they have a classroom video monitor. It was a charter school in Chester, Pennsylvania.
And was it cyber charter?
I don't know. I don't know that.
Because that might make all the difference. They would have to have a video monitor.
No, no, it was in-person teaching. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
It was in-person. No, but she was an in-person teacher. Yep. She's retired now, but only a couple of years now. Yeah. To her knowledge, she thought other charter schools in the state of Pennsylvania also were doing it. Yeah, which I haven't been able to verify. I called a couple, but they just blow me off. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put it on my list and we'll discuss it in a future meeting.
Oh, cool. No, thanks. Yeah, I think we need input, from the parents and maybe the teachers unions, right?
Absolutely.
And the teachers, because there's gonna be a little pushback, I think, from the teachers and the teachers unions. But I think, if a teacher's doing a good job, hey, just forget about the camera, what do you have to be afraid of? It actually may protect you from any allegation of some kind of offensive language to a student or something in the future. And it might protect you from any violent behavior too. So, there's a lot of positives, even though there are a couple negatives.
Thank you.
I noticed Justin isn't here. Do we have any idea how many classrooms we actually have in the district?
Can you walk around tomorrow again? I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I would guess it's somewhere around 165. Off the top of my head, I would guess so.
Gotcha. So, put on the list, and we'll think about it on another day when we have some more information. Item 1.9, reports. Let's start with the student board representatives.
So this week and last week, Mr. Bowman's physics and project research science classes have been launched in model rockets during school hours. They have been learning how to calculate altitude and learning rocket launching safety. It's been a fun time to see their students' creations take to the skies.
Okay, 32 students from the high school attended the PA FBLA State Leadership Competition in Hershey, Pennsylvania from April 6th to April 9th. Our students competed in all types of events from advertising to public speaking to network design. Some events are 100 question tests and others are live presentations to a panel of judges and then their question on their presentation after they present. Unfortunately, none of our students qualified for nationals, but Aiden Albert placed 6th in the state in network design. So we were really proud of him for that because that's a really tough event to be in. When students are not competing or testing, they're watching other students present or attending informational workshops. Workshop topics include resume building, information on the FAFSA, how to properly use AI, and many more topics. This is traditionally a really fun and educational weekend for our students.
NHS recently did a penny wars. They made $213.25. The NH members gathered in rapid coins during enrichment, and the winners of the penny wars, which were Mrs. Lavasso and Mrs. Rickert's homeroom on Wednesday, April 23rd, received a pizza and Rita's reward. The money will be going to NHS donations fund.
In March, our Science Olympiad team qualified for states. They were at the last meeting, so they did talk about that a little bit. And so they placed high enough in all of their individual events to rank in the top 6 in their region. As you know from the presentation they gave, they spent a lot of time preparing for their exams and perfecting their devices and creations and their little airplanes and everything like that. And the competition was held this past weekend at Penn State Altoona. Students that placed were Nick Gomer, CJ Stroll, and Isaac Carpenter.
The band took a national trip from April 4th to April 8th. The band performed at the Country Music Hall of Fame on April 6th. Unfortunately, their appearance at the Grand Ole Opry was canceled due to weather on April 5th, but the band members had a spectacular time on their trip in touring the city.
The drama club performed Mamma Mia at the end of March. The show was very popular amongst the student body and the community. Our student section even came out to have a group of students all sit together and cheer on the drama club members on the Saturday performance. More tickets were sold this year than in the past, and the cast members really brought the show to life, and they did a beautiful job recreating such a well-known musical. Unlike prior years, the finale of the show was a little bit different. It was interactive with the crowd, so audience members were encouraged to stand up, clap, and sing super well-known ABBA songs as the performers took their bows. Hopefully you were able to make the show, but if not, I'm sure next year will be just as amazing.
On April 22nd, Isaac Carpenter, Beto Chocolate, and Hakeem Chocolate competed in their District 11 tennis matches at Lehigh University. Beto also went on to the District 11 semifinals on April 24th. We'd like to congratulate the boys on making it to districts and for Beto to make it to the semifinals.
This past Friday, April 25th, was the high school's academic awards program. At this program, the main event is the scholarships that are presented to deserving seniors who completed the scholarship packet and the few who were interviewed. In total, $298,000 in scholarships were awarded and several non-monetary awards were also given out. The scholarships vary in criteria and amount, some of them being extremely specific, such as college major, high school clubs, your GPA, or the cost of your education, and others are pretty broad. Some of the scholarships were presented by the organization who gives the funding. So for example, the class president of the class of 1964 was able to be there and award the recipient of that scholarship. Overall, students were very excited to be rewarded for all their hard work and will put the money towards tuition. Jake and I were both able to receive some scholarships and we're very thankful for those.
On Thursday, May 1st, select members of the choir will be traveling to Coca-Cola Park to perform the national anthem at their college showcase game. It will depart at 8:30 a.m. and return by 3:30 p.m. Students will be responsible for communicating to teachers about any missed assignments.
On April 24th, the senior scholar athletes were honored at the Colonial League Academic All-Star Breakfast. The female honoree was Natalie Blair, and the boy was Jackson Strauss. The scholar athlete is determined by GPA, so the male and female athletes with the highest GPA qualify for this title. And the program was held at Greenwood Country Club, and all Colonial League high schools were in attendance. That's all.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Strike for brevity tonight. We do have a much longer presentation later on concerning the budget, but I certainly want to give some other updates as well. Students are in the middle of assessment season. That means teachers are in the middle of assessment season as well. That includes PSSAs, grades 3 through 8 in ELA and math, and then grades, this year it's grades 5 and 8 in science. So all those going on over the last week, this week, and coming up. Keystone exams will take place between May 12th and 23rd in high school in English, biology, and algebra. And not listed there, but also included would be AP testing, which occurs throughout much of the month of May as well. So busy times, a lot of altered schedules. So students might be a little off because of what they had to do that day. I would stress for parents, please help by making sure students get enough rest. It's one of the major indicators of student success. So busy time in schools. This is the first year that PSSAs, we are proctoring all PSSAs online, and it sounds as if from all reports that I've heard, that has gone off without any significant glitches. So kudos to the teachers for working through that, to Mrs. Lott-Elect, to the principals, and certainly to Mrs. Strasburger, who's not here this evening. There's a lot of work and coordination that goes on with making sure every student has their login information, and computers are updated, and teachers know how to handle situations that might arise. So thank you all for working through that. Update on the elementary facade. We are still working on a formal agreement with Schrader. I anticipate having that in hand by the middle of this week. And then at that point in time, we'll share with our solicitor for review and be ready for approval in May, so that, the prime season for them to be able to come in and do the work is, late spring, and hopefully maybe whatever rectifications we have to make can be done then throughout the summer, so as to not to disturb any of the school year this year or next year. So hopefully we can work through that approval and then move on that and try to get that work, the first project done, the assessment, but then also a plan for the remedy. Tonight, as we launch into a deeper dive into the budget, I wanted to take a little bit of time because I think this is a really important aspect of the overall financial status of the district, and which is our debt service. So debt service is essentially how much do we pay in principal and interest every year. So we have several different bonds. Some of them are 10, 15 years old, and PFMA will restructure and refinance bonds so that we can stretch it out longer, so on and so forth. But we kind of boil it down. What we look at is one debt service line in a budget on an annual basis. So it can have a very significant impact on the budget because, quite frankly, it can be up to 10% of some district's overall budget in terms of expenses any given year. Our current 24-25 fiscal year that we're sitting in right now is actually the sort of the high mark of our structured debt calendar. It's over $5 million this current fiscal year 24-25. I will show you the chart. The balance cost of our debt, which means what we pay out on principal and interest, plus there are some that receive reimbursement rates, What is left after you subtract the reimbursement rates from what you pay out is what I'm referring to as the balance cost of the debt service. Actually goes down approximately $900,000 between the 24-25 fiscal year and the 25-26 fiscal year. That does have a very positive impact on our budget for next year. But as you will see in the future slide, we can't anticipate having that same amount of drop in future years. So as we look at this, we've put together sort of a debt service calendar that stretches out, as we see, yes, to 2043-44. And you see, as I said, this year our payment and interest is over $5 million. The balance cost is actually slightly over $4 million. And you see how that drops off next year, next fiscal year, down to about $3.15 million. But then you don't see another significant drop, I would say, really until probably into the 30s, the mid to late 30s of this decade. So that debt service line stays pretty stagnant after this drop from 24-25 to 25-26. So as we're planning and looking ahead and doing some forecasts for future years, this is always going to be a critical factor, because even if we do not take it, there are no new bonds at any time between now and 2044, unless if we were to restructure and refinance, which I would wager that at some point in time between now and 2044, the district will do. I will not be sitting in this chair at that point in time. But at some point in time, they are likely to do that, especially when an older bond drops off. There are programs and agencies that basically try to restructure your debt so that they can say, depending upon when you're going out to market, when interest rates are really low, perhaps get a lower interest rate, so on and so forth. But I think that this is an important piece of context when you think about an overall budget, when you think about overall expenses. There's been some discussion around discretionary costs. This is not a discretionary cost. This is fixed. We know how much we're paying off in debt service every year. That doesn't mean our debt goes down by how much we pay it, because it doesn't actually. It varies year to year depending upon what payments are being applied to which bonds, and it can be far more complex than what I'm showing you here. But this at least gives you an idea. For the next several years, that is an amount that is fixed into expenditures. There is, unless if we were to refinance, there is no changing that. Any questions about that? Or comments from the board?
The $900,000 savings will perpetuate. Next year, there'll be a $900,000 saving. It's going to carry over year to year to year.
Correct.
So
It's a drop in expenditures.
correct.
But costs also do not do that typically. This is the one cost that does, right? That stays fixed.
And that's a good thing.
Yes. This is the one cost that right now, regardless of what else happens in the district, and you have supplies and you have contracts and things of that nature that are always, you have to count on those always rising. This is the one thing that is, as of right now, fixed. And that is a good thing. Okay. Nothing else to move on, just a reminder, there's some new and some old on this slide, some upcoming information. District strategic plan will be presented definitely by late June. That will help us define administrative goals. District goals are professional development topics and the way we conduct business here. We are in the works of developing both an assessment calendar for our buildings, which will include any norm reference, criterion reference, and summative assessments that are given throughout the year, leading to an actual data system that is consistently and regularly utilized and analyzed by all staff. And we are also putting together what you can expect as a board for a reporting calendar for when you can expect data points to be presented to the board. This, as responses were brought up at the workshop meeting, something that you wanted to see, we will actually be able to provide with you not only sort of some tentative timelines of when certain assessments will yield results to be able to discuss at the board level, but also what types of assessments they are and what types of information we are able to glean from those. And then finally, again, professional development plan is in the works for next school year. And that is something that would outline all mandated trainings as well as our district initiatives according to the strategic plan and administrative goals and district goals, and will be delivered publicly by late July, early August. I actually think probably by late July. And that concludes my report for this section.
Thank you. Business Administrator?
Thank you. This office has been hard at work on budget, as you see being presented tonight. Also, we recently completed our food service monitoring for the food service program. We did not have any findings as a result of that. So kudos to the finance staff who worked on that. Also, we will be releasing an RFP in May for our renewal for HVAC services. For service and maintenance of HVAC in our buildings, as well as for school photo services. That contract is also up for renewal, so that's what lies ahead, in addition to our open enrollment period, which will begin in May. We'll roll out for our staff and employees. Thank you.
Great, thank you. LTRC, Dave Kraus?
Good evening. LTRC accreditation is underway. It's done by the Middle States Commission on Higher Education, which is a global institutional accreditor recognized by the U.S. Secretary of Education since 1952. They ensure the rigor and educational quality for over 500 institutions in the U.S. and abroad of higher education. LTRC board met this past week with Dr. Ryan Harnett, our accreditation liaison. He said that the turnout at LTRC's college-wide meeting was unprecedented. So it was really shows a lot about our staff. And he's never seen any type of response like this. He said, keep doing what you've done today for the team visit. The process also involves the board as it audits our policy, procedures, and et cetera. So it's very comprehensive. And as I mentioned last month in my report, this is a 3-year process. So we're just kind of at the beginning. And it's really done, it's a self-study, but they monitor it and then they audit it. The college local legislative delegation visited our campus on April 16th for the student legislative breakfast. The event gave the legislators an opportunity to meet with LTRC students and in turn allow the students to ask them some questions about their experience as elected officials. We had a pretty good showing. David Argo was represented by Brad Hurley. Senator Nick Miller was there, Representative Gary Day, Representative Pete Schweier, Representative Zachary Mako, Representative Jeannie McNeil, and of course our own Doyle Heffley were there. A sample of some of the questions that the students asked. What was your motivation to become an elected official? What are the biggest challenges facing higher education over the next 2 years, and how will Pennsylvania prepare, and what will the changes could we see? And another one was, what's your best advice for students wanting to get involved in the local, state, and national level to voice opinions or influence change? So it was a good breakfast. I did not attend, but I heard it was a lot of good discussions. And also, we recently completed a campus climate study assessed on how students, faculty, staff, and administrators perceive and experience the campus environment. It was conducted by an independent consultant who noted our high response rate in the surveys by both students and staff and the overall very favorable responses in the report. So they do a lot of different places. They don't share any proprietary information, but they were very complimentary on just the number. Anytime you do a survey, it's hard to get a response. So the data serves as a tool to identify areas to improve satisfaction and retention of both employees and students. And finally, we're wrapping up our academic year. Commencement is on May 21st at 6 p.m. at the PPL Center, so I'm sure we'll have some heightened students there, and I will be in attendance. Questions? You guys know where to find me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy, yeah, you?
There is no item report for this month because the meeting is Wednesday. They're doing the spring fling, so they do it at the end of the month. And unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but I'm sure I'll have highlights from that for next month.
Thank you. So, Heather and Carrie are not here, so we will not hear those reports. We're doing something a little bit different. We're not going around the table and getting individual reports from the administrators. The board receives reports. Does the board have any questions for any administrators at this time? Great. Moving on to item 1.10. Do I hear a motion to approve the revised March 24th board meeting minutes and the April 14th workshop meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to part 2, financial matters. There's a little typo here. I'm going to correct it. Thank you, Jean. Do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda items 2.2 through 2.8?
I'll make a motion, but I'd like to remove 2.2 and 2.4 for comments.
So let's get a second on that, and then we can have a motion to change.
So moved. Or second, sorry.
Rick, Dwayne, would you like to make a motion? You can make a motion after a motion,
Okay,
yeah, to change.
I make the motion to change the consent agenda items by removing 2.2 and 2.4 from the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Do we have any discussion on that item? This time, we'll obviously hear from you later why you wanted to do that. Great, any comments from the public, since it's a motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? So this is a 4-1, but we're not spending money.
Well, now wait, yeah, this does not have to be,
this is.
this motion, but all, when we do the consent part of it, it should be roll call because there are contracts in there.
Yes.
Correct. So I shall call the motion passed then. Okay, so back to the original motion, which will now be amended to the consent agenda items 2.2 through 2.8 with 2.2 and 2.4 removed. Any comments or questions on that at this time? We'll take a roll call vote.
Mr. Dwayne Dellifer?
Aye.
Mr. Jeremy Clutch?
Yes.
Ms. April Walker?
Yes. You're part of those?
I'm gonna say no because I didn't want them removed, so I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
4-1.
Does it pass? Because some of these items are spending money.
Yes.
So in my opinion, the motion has failed. And I think that forces us to actually do each.
All right, then I'll vote yes. It just makes no sense for me to vote yes because I didn't want them removed.
Right, but you're not voting on the removal now, you're voting on whether or not you pass the other items.
It's fine, I'll change my vote to yes to move this along.
Thank you.
I just didn't have a problem with the other ones either, so.
Understood. All right, so now we will go to item 2.2. Do I hear a motion to approve the purchase of iReady for grade 6 through Curriculum Associates for the 25-26 school year?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Question on the motion. I see in the Curriculum Associates information on their professional learning that their sessions are provided in person, where one of their employees can reach the session site by car, and where adequate safety measures are in place to protect the health of our session leaders and participants. But they also reserve the right to switch any session from in-person to virtual if they cannot reach a session by car. I think our teacher instruction should be in person. Do you have any comments on that, Jason?
My experience with curriculum associates is that if you request them to be in person, they're in person. I've never had any problems. We have, in the past, I was in another district where we actually said we would like this one to be virtual because it reduced the cost and it was more of an administrative function. But the intent is that these are in person. If for some reason somebody cannot make it that day, we will reschedule rather than cancel.
Perfect, I'm fine with that.
Other questions on this motion?
Didn't we discuss this at the workshop, the same thing?
We
A
did.
little bit, yes. Other questions? All those in favor? Aye.
That's a roll call.
Oh,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
correct, it's a contract. Roll call.
Mr. Jeremy Blouch,
Yes.
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Hughes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on, item 2.4, do I hear a motion to approve the agreement with Toshiba for document scanning services?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Questions?
Yes, I just want to be clear on this, and I want to give Jason kudos on this, because I remember reading in the paper some time ago that we were told, the taxpayers were told, that this was going to cost $300,000 to satisfy Mr. Bradley's right to know request. And now we have a contract that is going to cost $16,000. I'd say that's phenomenal, and I'd say somebody misled the board in the past. Thank you.
I just like to comment, as much as I love taking kudos, this was a project that people in the office, in the business office, were looking into and trying to find a solution. So that was a team effort in the business office, and they did a great job of bringing me something and saying, hey, we think this makes sense.
Perfect.
I'd also like to add that the approximate $300,000 was for more documents, since Mr. Bradley agreed to remove some. And it was also for the actual redaction of the documents, which is actually going to be done in the district here.
Other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Roll call vote.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Jeremy Blouch,
Yes.
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Hughes.
Yes.
Thank you. 5 yes.
Item 2.9, do I hear a motion to approve the agreement with Lehigh Valley Health Network for healthcare services with the Lehigh Area School District?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Jean, roll call vote?
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Rose,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blouch,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Hughes.
Yes.
5 yes. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 2.10, which is a presentation on the expenditure projections.
Okay, Mr. Lentz and I are going to kind of tag team this and go back and forth in a couple of areas. So the first slide, I will turn over to Ms. Lentz.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. So to give you an update, since our initial projections of revenues, we've been able to further refine numbers. We've been able to gauge things like our interest and what that has been trending in at, and where interest rates are trending from an environmental perspective. So I wanted to give you a presentation and a focus of what we've been able to update. So we'll start, we've updated our delinquent real estate revenue based upon that collection through our delinquent real estate tax collector report-off. We've been able to adjust that number. Also, we've been able to look at our interest that we're earning in the district to date, to look at what our cash flow is and our needs, and to update the interest in the budget. Also, we've been able to update based upon the LVHN proposal, our contribution and donations on the local revenue side. On the state side, people transportation data has been released related to the prior year subsidy. So we're able to update the budget by $20,000 for that projected revenue. Although the note on that is that it's driven by our expenditures and formula. So it does anticipate that we will be having higher expenditure costs related to transportation as a formula. PCCD, there seems to be some discussion that that funding will be rolled out in some form next year, based upon what we received before, just giving a more realistic number on that with the clarity that there seems to be funds that will roll out to schools in the final state budget. And then looking at our title funds, being able to look at where those allocations are landing for this year, as well as new final numbers that will be released shortly regarding that funding. Those numbers have also been updated. So the new projected revenue total is $49,859,811.
That's good.
Very precise.
Okay, so for some context, we were asked for some of these figures in specific areas. And so we put together this chart and also included some notes here in terms of what we've been spending or bringing in terms of revenue, what we have budgeted for next year, and then some notes again, as we said. You do see a decrease in BHA that can be attributed to the planned opening of an emotional support classroom run by the district with the district teacher. So while those costs go down, please understand that's going to bring expenditures in the area of personnel up. The goal in year one is literally to have it be a wash. And then in future years, as the room is up and running, be able to avoid costs that would have been attributed in that line. CSR funding, that's bye, that's gone, no more.
Okay.
It's not there.
That's why I asked you to put it there so we can
Yes.
see it going away.
Yes.
I'm
Total.
just glad we got as much as we did for this year.
The timing stretched it out at the time, however it was structured and kind of decided to be spent at that time.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There are some districts who spent it all in year one. Like if they did a construction project, if they did an HVAC system, that was something that was allowed,
Right.
so they could
But
have.
we used it for various things too. We
Yes.
replaced the whiteboard and other stuff in the high school auditorium.
You see total expenditures, we look at fund balance, and you see how that is
So
incremental.
the expenditures were coming $1 million last year guessing than it was budgeted.
For this year, approximately.
Right, for this year.
$1 million less than what
Right,
it
the
was.
budget was 50.6 million and we're gonna come in,
50.6.
you're guessing we're gonna come in at 49.5.
That's for next year.
Oh, that's for
Preliminary
next
budget. The 25-26 is a preliminary, yeah. So what you see is years.
I see, you
So
don't
it's
have
gonna
an
be $1
estimate.
million less next year if everything.
Right,
Correct.
so we don't have an estimate for how you think this year is gonna come out.
Well, if you look at 24-25 right now, you've got 40 million, 40.3 so far spent of that originally budgeted 50.6. But personnel still goes on, you still have
Still pay that through June 30th.
Yes, yeah, so, you still have a little over 2 months there, and then obviously maintenance costs continue.
Then you have all the bills that come in
Yeah.
2 months later that have to be,
Yes.
because the cyber charters.
Can you say something?
Yeah, we all suggest we are getting our estimate for this year's health insurance, actual expenditures and final rates tomorrow. We're delayed from BSI and working through the actual, and that's also a big driver of that number.
Well, what I was surprised to see during this year, and I think it was October, I questioned why we were paying Visit. It was around $400,000, and it's because our health insurance expenditures, normally we get some kind of rebate, we didn't for the previous year. So we actually had to pay in because we only funded 90%. So we had to pay in basically that extra 10%, might have been a little less than 10%. So, which is, I questioned it because it's like, I've never seen this before. I was used to getting, $500,000 back.
You do see the fund balance, obviously 24-25 fund balance isn't known yet until the audit for the current fiscal year is complete. And so you can't really play that out yet. You see grants including ESSERs, and then you see grants with no ESSERs included.
So grants with no
That
ESSERs.
can't be right.
Yeah, because year to date, we got
Yeah, I had to transfer.
2.6 million, but we were supposed to get 3.1. Are we gonna get the rest of that, or the numbers are wrong, is that what you're saying?
Well, you have to remember, when you look at the revenue report, and it shows you what was budgeted for ESSER, and, which I don't think was anything, or very little,
I'm
anyway.
talking about the no ESSER line.
Yeah, the no ESSER
Well, when
line.
you're talking about grants, when we look at the revenue sheets that get put out every month, that's for the previous month.
This also does include the Ready to Learn increase that came through this year. So that additional new funding from the state, so that figure does include that. So those are accurate. We will get there when the final expenditure reports are completed. That's all.
Well, the state just doesn't pay you out.
Right away.
Yeah.
So the 3.08 million is pretty much guaranteed funding.
Okay, so we're gonna get all that,
Yes.
we're not gonna come short. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, as Matt said, healthcare, that's sort of 24-25, probably gonna be very, very, very close in terms of actual costs. 25-26 is very preliminary, and there's some work there to be done with updates hopefully tomorrow, as Matt just said. So, and then you see legal costs in terms of what has been budgeted and what has been spent. So 22, 23, and 23, 24 actuals, 24, 25 year to date is what has been spent since July 1 up to this point. That will change a little bit, as Ms. Bose said. It's kind of a month behind, and you see what was budgeted for 24, 25, and you see the preliminary budget of 25, 26 at 150 but we are likely to see some reduction from that as well as we actually move toward a proposed budget based upon our actuals right now. However, we do have to understand we are in contract negotiation years for two separate contracts, so it's a little harder to pin down exactly what those costs will be at this point in time. Hopefully, we don't need too many for smooth negotiations. And then you see investments and where we're at so far year to date. We've already exceeded what was originally budgeted, and you still have a lot of revenue, a couple months of revenue to come in from that. And what we're looking ahead there with preliminary budget of $1 million for the 25-26.
Are you guys actually planning to do something different that's going to generate that additional revenue?
It's really based on trends. We do have some CDs that renew with MCT, and so that's what will help us next year because those rates are locked in. And so as rates potentially will decrease, we'll continue to reap benefit of those funds.
Okay, great, thank you.
Turn it back over to Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. So projected expenditures, and I can certainly address each of these, but just to give you the overview, so the bulk, so 30 million of the 49 budget is all directed at instructional expenditures, 38.7 million. 18.4 million of that, almost 18.5, is for regular programs, which is what is in our buildings, as well as, of course, for staff salaries and benefits. Federally funded programs, again, predominantly staff and benefits, and again, with our approach this year to be allocating Title II funds over to that as well, that is an even larger chunk that is supporting those salaries and benefits. The next 1200 series, so 1211 all the way down to 1233, is our cost for salaries, benefits, tuition, contracted services related to special education. We'll talk towards the end about some changes there that have assisted us in reducing cost, but those costs are significant with regards to the next portion of our regular expenditures for instructional needs. We then have our gifted support cost, 1243 at 52,000, pre-K instruction at 188.78, and then additional items for special education, deaf and autistic. And then we have our contribution for vocational education, $1.7 million, our sponsorship for the community college of $189,285, and then the budget for what we actually pay related to tuition, $44,394 to the community college, giving us a total for the 1,000 series of $30.7 million. Next slide starts the support services. So when we get to support services, we're really looking at costs related to principal, those administration services in the main office for administrators and secretaries, 1.5 million for those. Our guidance services, supporting our students across the district, $738,921. Then the state makes us break out certain guidance-related services and student support services by individual categories. So you'll see the projected budgets for counseling, record keeping, site services, social work services, all really correlate back to our student service and pupil service programs. Student accounting services is our costs associated with the mandated reporting to the state for PIMS and other data that we have to maintain. Other student services, computer assisted instruction, and school library services at $577,994. Our instructional curriculum development, so that is the cost that we have, salaries and benefits, and then for curriculum that is developed centrally in partnership with the schools, that is then rolled out and part of our cycle. Costs related to administration in our Office of Special Education, $88,000 for instructional staff development and certification costs. Our tax collection costs of $186,487, and our budget for the Office of Superintendent, $321,765. On the next slide, we have our cost for nursing services across the district for that program, $455,857. Our business office costs, the costs we have to categorize the staff within the business office based upon their function, and also the costs that we have with regards to commissions for tax collection, as well as for other costs of disbursement to funds. Then we get to the operation and maintenance budget, so our supervision or our central costs for that, the actual building costs, which includes our custodial, our maintenance costs for buildings, security services, technology services at 1.2 million, other staff services at 66,453, and this 2291 that's looks out of place and doesn't have a narrative is a new account which is used related to the costs for recess, lunch monitor, and other expenditures related to clearances.
So you're saying that was never tracked before?
The state didn't have that breakdown.
Oh, it's a state and.
Yeah, so that's what we put into the system. I won't say it doesn't exist, but the number exists, but we haven't fleshed it out because it's such a
So it was included in other things
Right,
before.
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, they frequently do a breakdown. The state's now going through compliance because we have to report specific costs now to sites, buildings, levels, grades, based upon a requirement at the federal level to have states provide that data, so it just flows down.
Which is why the chart of accounts changes every year,
Absolutely.
sometimes twice a year.
On the next slide, other breakdowns with regards to staff development for non-instructional staff, other psych services, board services, legal and accounting services. So that would also include your audit costs in that item. Medical services, staff development, non-instructional, vehicle operation services, which is broken down into 1.7 million for your district transportation costs, and then the services that you provide to non-public schools is at $25,000. Support services, which is $25,000. A large part of that is your contribution that you're required to make to the intermediate unit every year. That's a fixed cost for being a part of that. And then other admin services, $3,200. So for the 2,000 totals, we have a total budget at this point of $13.9 million. Finally, we get to the costs associated with student activities and athletics, and then a small amount for community services, like 3,000 or functions, totals of around $1 million. And then finally, we get to our debt service budget. Also, there's some fees associated with that. We pay that broken down by principal, interest. There's also a fee that the sinking fund custodian gets. And then at this point, a very small budget reserve. So to highlight what was going through, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rosen.
Yeah, so thank you. This one, you see the major function totals adding up to that 49.5 and some change. Wanted to be completely forthcoming here that this does include a couple of new personnel positions, some of which we've discussed at length here. That would be the elementary center emotional support teacher and the elementary center registered behavioral technician. Those again are those new costs that offset the savings in tuition to BHA in year one. And then also the addition of a middle school counselor at the middle school. Steve and Tiffany are not here tonight, but we currently have one school counselor at the middle school. If anybody has ever spent a good deal of time with any groups of middle school students, it is definitely needed to have another school counselor at the middle school level. So we have about 450 students at the middle school right now with one school counselor.
I only raised 2 kids that went through that age group. No, I'm good. You're right, we need it.
That is definitely something, and I know, the middle school went through some significant staffing changes that are allowing us to reallocate resources, at the elementary center, but this is a spot where they need more support. And so I would advocate for that. So it needs to be known that what we're presenting includes numbers for that. So from an overview perspective, what you see, projected revenues, again, the key term projected, $49,859,811, and our projected expenditures, $49,530,363.54 for a projected surplus of just under $330,000 for the next fiscal year. It's important, I'll turn this back over because Matt has a much better understanding of this. significant factors that can still play out.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. So of course, tax collection rates, the rate at which people pay their tax bills, to us is a consideration. Also, in particular, commercial appeals, to commercial appeals that are out there. Those have the potential to go over multiple years, which means for those that settle, there potentially could be a refund that we're going back to. Also, while they're under assessment, the property owners have the right to pay those taxes in protest, which means you actually have to segregate those monies out. You can't necessarily bank on them as spendable funds for that. State allocations, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of further clarity. We're still 2 months ahead of the state's deadline for budget approval. So as we know, we never get that, and that's why people are.
December sometime? I was gonna say only 2 months back.
In theory. So of course, those can change, and that also will change. In early May, we will get the property tax allocations that homestead and farmsteads get off of their tax bills. So that number would potentially change your local tax collection revenue, because you'll be getting that revenue from the state based upon that distribution. Our very final federal program numbers, and again, any changes that may be made at the federal level with regard to those funding levels. And then, of course, while we've tried to be conservative and accurate with the investment earnings, there is the potential for a significant change in the market that would delta those and lose revenue not only for this year, but if you lose significant interest revenue from a significant change in the market, that would really, for a foreseeable future, be a budget factor. And that's one of the pieces that Mr. Mose will talk about.
That's when interest rates grow.
Yeah, in the next slide about how next month we're going to bring you a multi-year forecast so that the board can see what the budget looks like based upon simple assumptions that we know are reasonable to assume as we look at costs that rise in the budget and revenues staying stable in most areas in the budget. On the expenditure side, personnel costs that can change with retirements. There's also healthcare costs as to our final rates forthcoming, any reconciliation from this year, and also selected benefits that we go through open enrollment. Staff can elect to come on benefits, come off benefits, change their coverage levels, within that for the final billing that we will receive. The need for capital improvements and where those would price out as across the district, and trying to address to maintain buildings so that we don't have larger expenses down the line with regards to those needs. And then tuition rates in particular, what might happen or not happen legislatively with regards to charter and cyber school tuition rates and those enrollments that we know can change.
Thank you. So clearly next steps tonight here in the coming days and weeks, seek feedback from the board about these projections. Certainly, what are your thoughts and what direction would you like to see us explore? Then drill down further on expenditures to identify potential cost savings. There is, clearly this is a very, very early look, but it is, what I will say is we were slow and steady, but very, very thorough. So while there may be some things that we could reduce in terms of expenditures, it's probably not, there's not a lot of fluff included in these numbers, quite honestly. A lot of times you'll see budgets, put forward that are kind of gray and fuzzy. This, I've been very clear from the beginning, I do not believe in being gray and fuzzy and being as accurate as possible. And that has been a little painstaking in this process. To be completely honest, it's been a lot of work, a lot of energy to get where we are. Third, adjust personnel costs as retirements are known. So the current expenditures do not include, anybody who was notified us that there would be retirements. There are some.
And staff have until August to report a potential retirement for next year, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
So-
there is no deadline.
Right, so that could change.
On the way.
Yep, exactly, right up till almost before the new school year starts.
Correct. Yes.
Just want to make that very clear.
As Mr. Weinstein indicated, we'll adjust any known revenues and expenditures. As we receive information, we continuously do that. You read the tea leaves from the state, as Mr. Wentz indicated, like PCCD. We weren't sure, and then the update to now is that, okay, it seems like, given meetings and things that have come out, there's going to be something, we just don't yet know.
It's a state grant, so it's wait on the state.
Yeah, yes. The goal here is, and I think we are ready to do this, and we can always make adjustments after this, but prepare a proposed final budget for review and approval. I am asking, given the timelines of how long budgets need to be available between the proposed final budget and the final budget, I am asking, get out ahead of it, asking for a special board meeting prior to our May 12th workshop, so that we can approve a proposed final budget with all the changes that were aforementioned, and get that posted and allow people the opportunity to review it prior to trying to, look to approve that in the month of June. Of course, even after the proposed and the final, we can continue to make revisions and adjustments, and we will do so. We will get as accurate as we possibly can over that time frame, and every time, just like we did here tonight, every time that there are significant changes, we will present what has been changed to the board at large, to the community at large, so that there's nothing really to question. It's here. Whatever changes we make, we will tell you if we update revenues, we will tell you if we update expenditures. So those go all the way through the final budget, and whenever in the month of June.
So I'd like to commend Jason and Matt, a lot of work here, and all of the staff backing you up. I mean, I think it's pretty evident that you've been trying to be thorough, which is sort of what's delayed finally seeing the number. And I think it's very brave of you to present a surplus to the board. I think it's brave. I think it's kind of antithetical sometimes to the culture, right? There's like you want to be conservative, you want to be safe, and I appreciate you sharpening the pencil. I think one of the things we haven't seen yet, and it's not a criticism because I know there's been a lot of work to get to this point here, which is the 5-year projection, right? Like, we would like to see that at hopefully the workshop meeting. And what I would propose to the board is I would like you to put a 1 mil decrease in taxes in the 5-year projection so that we can just see what it looks like.
We can run a couple of different scenarios, so that you are able to see what the impact would be over that length of time. Matt and I talked about that, and he said he's confident, calling you out, putting you on the spot here, Matt, confident that we will have that before the May 12th workshop meeting, prior to asking you to vote on a proposed.
Good. I have no problem with that. And you'll be using Forecast 5, the software we purchased some years ago.
Yeah, I've already updated it to date with bringing it back from the prior year with actuals and the budget for this year. So now that we have some direction on the budget after tonight, I can begin looking at it.
Great.
And you can't really do anything until you get the healthcare numbers anyway.
Yeah, I know we've discussed this in the past, and I think it is well warranted for the taxpayers of this district, especially when you consider everything they've been through in the last decades. But the bottom line is, when we prepare a budget, we always give a little bit more fluff to expenditures and are very conservative on revenues, because you just never know what's going to happen. But seeing these numbers, I think we can very easily project, well, we're not going to have a tax increase, that's for darn sure.
Correct.
I will not support that, but it certainly looks like we should be able to come favorably to maybe a mil decrease for our taxpayers.
I want to see the 5-year projection.
I want to see it too.
I want to see how it plays out.
The problem with decreasing the mills, and believe me, I love it.
I know there's a ripple effect. You never get it back.
you lose the interest on that money, so you're losing revenue. So it's not just the decrease of 1 mil. You don't have as much money invested because you're gonna have to take that 1 mil and remove that from your revenue. Plus, you're not gonna have as much in interest income. And that can be a larger number or a lesser number depending what the interest rate
You're
is.
talking about if we create a deficit.
It would create a deficit in the revenue or your fund balance. Because you wouldn't be receiving approximately $375,000.
Correct.
That's the approximate
And
cost
then
of
next
1 mil.
year, our expenditures are gonna be $900 less.
900,000, right?
Sorry, 900.
But down the road, so are you gonna have to increase the taxes in 2 years instead of 4 because you gave 1 mil back?
I'd like to see.
And that 1 mil's going back every single year, so you're losing that over a period of years. Don't have an issue with seeing it,
Yep, correct. I will see what it looks like.
but you have to understand, you could be basically shooting yourself in the foot.
Or putting the 1 mil back in 2 years.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think we'll be shooting ourselves in the foot for one simple reason. We've got a fund balance of $15 million, up $3 million from the cycle before. So,
But part of the reason we're making so much money on interest is because we have that 15 million.
well, we're not proposing to give the 15 million back.
Well,
I'd
we're
love
gonna
to do
end up
that.
spending it.
What?
We don't have that right now. We don't know what it's gonna be at the end. You know what I mean?
It's there.
Anyways,
Not until the audit is done, right, Matt?
The audit was done and was presented last month, I believe, and it showed a $15 million fund balance.
That was for the previous year.
So
The end of the
For
previous year.
24, correct.
Right.
Regardless, we're going to see the 5-year projection, and then we can see those numbers at the workshop meeting, and we can debate further.
I would say, one thing that is not in this, and we have not really talked about it, is setting money aside for capital projects, for maintenance costs. So I think that is the wrinkle, that is also something that we have to consider as we move forward. It's a big one. I mean, costs go up every year, unless if you do something that changes the structural costs, and that would be personnel, really personnel. Supplies, I've been asked about discretionary spending before, and it's really hard because literally in every category that we presented, there is discretionary spending. There are things that we choose to spend money on as a district that we don't have to spend money on.
Like transportation and sports and band and all that. Of course we want to.
And quite honestly, a whole lot of professional positions and paraprofessional positions. We have no board policy that dictates students per classroom. So really, discretionary spending, we can have 4 fourth grade classrooms. Truly. I mean, it would be disastrous, right? It would hurt kids.
And must adjust it. Nowhere near.
So it's hard to pinpoint what is discretionary and what's not, because literally every part of this has some element of being discretionary. And I think so that component, along with the component of looking down the road, what would the impact be? We will provide. Matt and I will get all the information as to what it looks like. And then combining that with thinking about how do we start to set money aside to maintain our facilities consistently in a thoughtful manner that defers down the road costs that are exorbitant. When we can pay for them now, yes, it hurts, but we will.
Well, the roof on this building is a perfect example. Because it was put off for 2 years, it cost an extra $50,000 because cost of materials went up.
So I think gathering all the information and presenting that is exactly what we will do.
Yeah, I think at the workshop meeting, seeing the capital, at least a preliminary capital management plan brought forward. I think the thing that you just brought up, which I've asked for in the past, and we haven't seen, but now perhaps that you have all the data together, you can actually show us what I call the mandatory versus the non-mandatory costs, which you call discretionary. we've never seen a hard number, and everybody freaks out when the board asks, we want to see it split out. It's not because the board wants to take it away, but it would be good to show, the community, like, this is what we're required to spend money on, and this is what we're not, but this is what it provides to the kids. So, interesting to see that number.
Well, that was in one of the budget presentations, I think from 2 years ago. That was, we saw that slide, but I don't know, maybe it's one that was cut out of the presentation.
It was inaccurate because non-mandatory costs, which we had signed a contract for, got lumped in with the mandatory costs. Because yes, we signed the contract, but technically it's not mandatory. Like in the next year, we could have not done it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a good explanation. It wasn't a good.
I don't know what contract you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about, like, all the extracurriculars are not mandatory according to the state.
Correct.
Transportation is not mandatory according to the state. So I was thinking along those lines.
So, correct, so 2 years ago, when we were presented the numbers, since we had signed a bus contract, it got lumped in with the mandatory costs. Because
Go back and look.
That's what I recall, so it wasn't.
I mean, social workers are not required by the state. We need them, but,
So I think we have a plan for the workshop. Does anybody want to request any other additional information for the workshop? All right, let's,
I'd just like to throw in there, and thank you to both of you gentlemen for that presentation. That was a great presentation.
very good. Right, item 2.11. Do I hear a motion to accept the settlement agreement as proposed by Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams as consideration for the waivers and releases provided and in full satisfaction of the district's duty to provide FAPE by establishing and funding a compensatory education fund in the amount of $615 hours, thank you.
it's the first time we've ever seen it without a dollar amount.
Exactly, well, it comes later, the dollar amount, but compensatory education for the student for the sole use of legitimate educational expenses, as well as provide payment of documented attorney fees and costs related to ODR number 30443-24-25 at a sum not to exceed $16,500 within 30 calendar days of the executed contract.
So moved.
Okay.
Second, oh, we got that already?
Does anyone have any questions? Maybe Dwayne, because this is the first one you've encountered since you've been on the board.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I read all of the agreements. I think I understand what they're doing.
Any questions?
Mine were answered. And mine were just because I've never seen one without a dollar amount for the education. This provides an hourly amount.
Does this need a roll call? Is it a contract?
I would say that it does.
Okay.
I would.
Well, it's a
Roll call,
lawsuit.
it's
so-
safer, yeah. Jean?
Ms. April Walker? Yes. Ms. Barbara Bose?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Delager?
Yes,
Mr. Jeremy Cloud?
Yes.
And Ms. Joy Pierce?
Yes.
5 yeses.
Item 212, is going to be very similar language, so do I hear a motion to establish a compensatory education fund in the amount of $10,000, attorney fees not to exceed $3,000 within 30 calendar days of the executed contract.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Janine, roll call vote?
Ms. April Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Bose?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Delager?
yes.
Mr. Jeremy Cloud?
Yes.
And Ms. Joy Pierce?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Item 213, do I hear a motion, once again, to create a compensatory education fund in the amount of $6,000, educational expenses and then attorney fees not to exceed $3,000 within 30 calendar days of the executed contract.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in, you going to say something? Roll call? Oh, right, roll call.
Ms. Barbara Bose?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Delaker?
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blau?
Yes.
Ms. April Walker?
Yes.
And Ms. Joy Peters?
Yes.
5 yes. Thank you.
Item 214, do I hear a motion, once again, settle an agreement for a compensatory education fund in the amount of $10,000, educational expenses and attorney fees not to exceed $3,000 within 30 calendar days of the executed contract.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call vote?
Ms. Barbara Bose?
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Delaker?
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blau?
Yes.
Ms. April Walker?
Yes.
And Ms. Joy Peters?
Yes.
5 yes. Thank you.
Item 215, do I hear a motion to approve a donation of $500 to the Franklin Township Fire Police for directing traffic on the Lincoln Area School District campus, which they will do during graduation?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 216, do I hear a motion to make the following transfers from the general fund to the food service fund as per the reimbursements from the Commonwealth? They are on the screen.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 217, do I hear a motion to approve the Lehigh Area High School and Lehigh Area Middle School activity funds for March?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Great. Item 218, do I hear a motion to approve the attached exemptions from per capita and/or occupational tax?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 219, do I hear a motion to approve the following refunds of per capita and/or occupational tax, 4 of them?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 220, do I hear a motion to approve the following reports from March? The condensed board summary, the expenditure report, the revenue report, the treasurer's report, and the fund summary.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 221, do I hear a motion to approve the following payment of bills for April in a total amount of $4,900,347.17?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions?
I have some comments. Took me a number of extra hours to go through these because I had to double and sometimes triple check a couple places. There's nothing wrong with it. But some of the dates on the bills we were paying, or moving the funds around for, there was one from July of '24. And that was for the ESY camp. And it was for their lunches and things like that. The CCTI bill that we paid according to the invoice was for January. Although we paid February's in February, you know what I mean? And it just might be, for the next person who's gonna do this, it might be a little,
True.
and I spent about 3 hours going back and double and triple checking, and okay, so I went back to January and December to make sure, you know what I mean? So, I'm just trying to make it easier going down the road. And it may be the way they're receiving, I don't know. You know,
Right.
and the one was for a check to the school district, probably from the grant, since it was ESY, summer camp for reading, I think. So, the grant paid the school back for the money they spent, basically. I just think that's gonna be really confusing for somebody, if they look. So, just saying.
Other comments? Thank you, Barb. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to part 3, personnel, item 3.1, the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda items 3.2 through 3.10?
So moved.
Second.
Can't really have comments or questions, other than to pull things out.
I don't think that there's anything in here that we need
There's no contracts.
yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Other comments?
The only comment we should make is on the retirements, that we thank them.
I was.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Now we can have our thank you.
Yes, and you should name them.
Yes, I want to thank Ms. Diane Schnell, Ms. Rhonda Rappel, Ms. Sharon Foch for their dedication and service to the students of the Lehigh Area School District.
That's a lot of years.
I see Ms. Rappel. Mrs. Rappel, I have to, so I was told by some people who know you better than I do, that you would not be offended by me sharing the story. But I actually remember Mrs. Rappel substituting in third ward when I was a student. So when I saw you, when I saw the name before the meeting, I'm like, I wonder. And then I saw you and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's definitely her. So I remember you well from that role, so I can't even imagine your students who had you every day of every year. So thank you. Incredible, and hopefully that wasn't offensive to you.
That's all. Okay. I have enjoyed all my years here. It's very bittersweet. Very bittersweet. I'm honored to retire from here.
Thank you.
Mrs. Rappel has been a fixture in this school for a very long time.
Well, back in 29, that's all I choose. Yeah. In the,
And you ate the boiler room, right? Yeah.
we did.
Right next to the gold bin.
That's exactly it. So, they don't know how things work.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
But just one other wonderful part, Mrs. Rappel has already said that she would be back as substitute.
Yay!
So we hope to see her.
I love doing it.
Okay.
I was afraid to ask, but I thought that would put a cloud on your head.
It'll be the first weekend, but later I am.
All right, item 3.11, Do I hear a motion to appoint Rebecca Kirkowitz as the district's Title IX coordinator?
So moved.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 312, do I hear a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Lehighton Area Educational Support Personnel Association and the Lehighton Area School District to address the support staff cleaner's salary?
So moved.
Second.
Very happy to see this. Yes, comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
Mr. Jeremy Blount,
Yes.
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Bose,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Peters.
Yes.
5 yes.
Excellent. Item 313, do I hear a motion to acknowledge FMLA leave for the following employees not to exceed 12 weeks?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 314, do I hear a motion to approve the following requests for pre-approval of courses and programs of study for employee continuing education? There are 6 items.
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to our 4 programs. 4.1 consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve consent agenda items 4.2 through 4.8?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Oh, there's contracts in there? Okay. Hearing no comments, we'll go to roll call vote.
Mr. Jeremy Blount,
Yes.
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Bose,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Peters.
Yes.
5 yes.
Item 4.9, do I hear a motion to approve the MOU agreement between the Lehighton Area School District and Wilkes University for the purpose of providing field experience for education students for the 25 up through 2030 school years?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. Jeremy Blount,
Yes.
Ms. April Walker,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Bose,
Yes.
Mr. Dwayne Gallagher,
Yes.
and Ms. Joy Peters.
Yes.
Yes.
Item 410, do I hear a motion to approve enrichment juries for students involved in personal conditioning, which will include hikes at various outdoor locations, as well as for participants in a VEDA, student forum, and collaborative programs with St. Luke's and Lehigh Valley Health Network or other health and wellness field-based locations?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions? Sounds like a great plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 412, do I hear a motion to approve the following school enrichment jury requests, items 1 through 11?
So,
These are specific.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Item 412, do I hear a motion to approve use of school property for the following requests, items 1 through 7?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions?
Yeah, Carlton County Housing Authority. That's an outside. Okay. I mean, shouldn't that have come to us a month before? I'm okay with it, but
Yep.
since we are going to be more careful
Yes,
about
it
those
should.
things. Okay,
So it's a late comment.
yeah, it's a comment.
Other questions or comments?
I know there's been a lot of other stuff going on. It's been busy, so. Just with the budget.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Moving on to part 5, miscellaneous, item 4.1. Do I hear a motion to approve Joy Beers and Heather Knapp as the 2025 PSBA delegate representatives for Lily Heighton Area School District?
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. 5.2 is not a vote, it's a discussion item. The IU would like us to submit ballots for their elections.
I did print them for your notes.
Thank you.
I already handed mine back.
So did Dwayne.
Yes, I will not be participating in that. Prior to my current position.
All right, moving on to part 6, old business. Jason, do we have any updates on LERTA and the traffic signal?
Yes, in terms of LERTA, I'm gonna have another follow-up conversation with the solicitor, but it is basically it's an outlier for a district to pass their own LERTA resolution. And so they almost, it seems to me that the recommendation as of right now, although I'm working through some clarification, is that if we were to participate, we would have to, we would want to push other entities to revise their own. So still determining whether or not how we would go about passing our own, should we choose to, if the other entities would not be amenable to.
So basically, we have to go along with what's already been passed.
Correct.
So it would be the entire township, okay?
Or we could suggest meeting with that other authority, NCDS, and possibly try to work things out together to the benefit of the community.
Correct. If you do things differently, then we're likely to get on board, that sort of thing.
I think it'd be good to have a face-to-face meeting, not in the court of public opinion, because, somebody might say something the wrong way, and then everybody's gonna say that that entity is fighting with this entity, et cetera, et cetera.
So are you saying, Jason, that you're still collecting additional information?
Yeah, I'm gonna have another follow-up phone call to see what other options do we have, other than go along or move along.
Okay.
And in terms of the traffic signal, did want to say no news from PennDOT. That might surprise everybody. But I will say, and I want to thank Janine, she did a lot of work on, we met with Representative Heffley a couple of weeks ago, and Janine did a great job of putting together, based upon the traffic study and the scope of the original design project of the traffic signal, applied for the multi-modal grant through,
It's the pre-application scoping.
Pre-application scoping. So we are hopeful to line up some grant funding to help offset those costs. It'd be great if it covered the entire thing, and if we knew how much it was gonna be and when it could actually be done, but we don't. So, but hopefully we can, get some support from the state, to improve the safety of traffic in the borough.
Doing 25 miles an hour through there would help. I got beat that tonight coming in here, sorry, the speed limit's 25. I have a question on old business. Why was the Clay Target Shooting Club removed from old business?
I am still working through getting some answers to what types of policy steps, what types of insurance steps would need to be taken. So it is.
I just thought it should still remain there, I'm just saying no updates, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my only question, I didn't understand why it wasn't there.
Hopefully, we can get that information as soon as possible, because I'd like to get that voted on. We missed this year already, and how have a lot of community members that have been reaching out to me about this, so I really think it's something that they're interested in.
Yeah, the plan, and I did speak with the individual who brought it forward. The plan was really to kind of work through that in the month of May, knowing there was a lot of prep work coming down the road for up to this point in terms of budget and some of those things. And also knowing that we have the time to work through those details. There is a fall season, so if it was going to be a go, we would want it, my understanding is that's a much more limited length of season and participation with a lot of other students participate in other activities.
I just thought maybe it was because of the recent college shooting and high school shooting.
I completely understand, just stick with the budget, let's get the budget finalized.
But I did have that conversation with that individual and said, like, we'll bring this back May and you work through the details and you still have time to kind of get set.
Great. Moving on for 8.1, director's concerns. Does anyone want to make any comments? Yes, you want to say it or shall I? So we had a teacher in our district, Erica, who participated in the Boston Marathon. And she, of course, qualified for next year again. She had an excellent time. And I think, she had an excellent time, but she also had excellent timing. And I think she said that she was taking it easy this time, and then she still can't help herself, and she just sped along and did even better than I think last time. So it's really great that we have teachers that are participating in things like that.
Out of respect, I drove around Boston once.
So did I. This was enough.
But no, I mean,
It was exhausting.
it was exhausting driving around. So a ton of respect. That is, that's just remarkable, so.
A couple of years ago, I went up to the Boston Shriners Hospital and did a walk around to that, I don't know, the place where all the wares are, what's the name of that store? It's like a big farmer's market.
Quincy Market.
Quincy Market. I was tired just walking through all that stuff, let alone going on that.
Right.
But when we're done with that stuff, I have a couple comments.
Yep, go ahead. It's director's concerns.
Wonderful. This is just more information for the directors. On Saturday, I had the privilege of being invited to and taking an all-day session down in Quakertown that was put on by the Independent Law Center and the PA Family Council. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about some phenomenal information and literature that they handed out, everything from the Sunshine Act to the right to know laws, to Title VII, to Title IX, dealing with employment and equal rights, and they honed in on Policy 103. They honed in on all of the woke stuff going on out there in other areas. Basically, the bottom line is that our board policy should mirror the values and the morality of our community. As school board directors, it is our responsibility to answer to the community, and we have oversight and the responsibility of oversight for everything in this school district. So I thought it was a wonderfully packed day of information that I'll be sharing other information. Maybe I'll put together a memo and send it out to the directors so that you can see at least the information that was presented. It was really good educational session.
You doing? Do we have other director concerns? Hearing none, do we have any public comment? Hearing none, item 8.3, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, third, fourth.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions, the ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned at 8:56 p.m.
We could have kept the meeting going indefinitely.
Oh, that's good.
We could have just sat here all night.